But one subtle shift in your behavior can make her replay your words all night without you sending a single extra message. Attraction is emotional, not logical. And this is where most people misunderstand human connection. People like to believe that attraction is built through reason, by saying the right things, offering the right qualities, or presenting a logical case for why someone should choose them. But the human heart does not respond to arguments, lists, or explanations. It responds to feelings. You can be the most reliable, kind, and consistent person and still fail to create attraction if you do not evoke an emotional experience. Attraction begins in the nervous system before it ever reaches the mind. Long before someone decides whether you make sense, they have already felt whether you feel safe, exciting, grounding, or emotionally stimulating. Logic may help someone justify attraction later, but it is never what creates it in the first place. When someone says, "I don't know why, but I'm drawn to them," that is emotional attraction at work. There is no spreadsheet in the mind weighing pros and cons in that moment. Instead, there is resonance, a subtle internal reaction shaped by tone, presence, confidence, and emotional depth. The brain releases chemicals based on how an interaction feels, not how impressive it sounds. This is why people often feel intense attraction towards someone who may not be perfect on paper, while feeling nothing for someone who checks every logical box. Emotions respond to energy, not credentials. Attraction lives in the space between words, in pauses, eye contact, emotional attunement, and how someone makes another person feel about themselves. This is also why over-explaining, over-texting, and over-proving often kill attraction. The more someone tries to logically convince another of their worth, the more they shift the interaction into a rational frame. But desire does not grow in rational spaces. Desire grows in uncertainty, imagination, and emotional tension. The mind becomes engaged when there is something to feel into, not something to analyze. When everything is explained, predictable, and overly available, there is no emotional spark left to explore. Attraction requires a sense of emotional movement, moments of connection followed by space to process those feelings internally. Emotional attraction is deeply tied to how someone feels in your presence. Do they feel seen without being interrogated? Do they feel calm without being bored? Do they feel challenged without being judged? These emotional states are what create longing. The subconscious mind remembers emotional shifts far more strongly than factual details. Someone may forget what you said, but they will remember how they felt when they were with you, and those feelings resurface when you are no longer there. That is when attraction deepens, not in constant interaction, but in reflection. Logic seeks certainty, but attraction thrives on emotional contrast. When you are emotionally grounded, not reactive, and not seeking validation, you create a safe emotional container. That safety allows attraction to grow naturally. You are no longer trying to persuade someone to want you. You are allowing them to feel their own response to you. And once emotions are involved, logic follows to justify what the heart has already decided. Silence creates curiosity because the human mind is wired to seek completion. When something feels unfinished, the brain naturally returns to it, replaying moments, searching for meaning, and filling in the gaps. In emotional dynamics, silence acts as a pause that invites imagination. It removes constant stimulation and replaces it with space, and space is where curiosity lives. When someone does not have immediate access to you, your words, or your attention, their mind begins to wander toward you. This is not because of absence alone, but because silence disrupts predictability. Predictability numbs emotional engagement, while uncertainty activates it. Silence allows emotions to echo long after an interaction ends, giving them room to deepen rather than dissolve. When communication is constant, there is no room for emotional processing. Every message answered instantly, every thought shared immediately, every reaction expressed without delay removes mystery from the connection. The mind becomes accustomed, and what is familiar quickly fades into the background. Silence interrupts this pattern. It signals emotional self-sufficiency and inner stability. Instead of chasing reassurance, silence communicates confidence without words. It shows that connection is chosen, not demanded. This shift changes how someone experiences you because people are naturally drawn to what feels grounded and self-contained rather than anxious or overextended. Silence also gives weight to interaction. When you speak less but with intention, your words carry more meaning. They are noticed, remembered, and revisited. A thoughtful pause after an emotionally resonant moment allows the feeling to settle rather than be rushed away. In that pause, curiosity forms. The other person begins to reflect, wondering what you meant, how you felt, and what comes next. This internal dialogue keeps you present in their mind without you having to do anything at all. Silence becomes a mirror reflecting their own emotions back to them. Emotionally, silence creates a subtle imbalance that the mind wants to resolve. When someone feels something meaningful but does not immediately receive more information, their brain stays engaged. It replays tone, expressions, and moments of connection. This is why silence after emotional closeness is far more powerful than silence after indifference. It allows the emotional peak to linger. The mind does not let go of what it has not fully understood or processed. Instead, it returns to it repeatedly, deepening emotional attachment through reflection rather than interaction. Silence is often misunderstood as withdrawal or lack of interest. But when it comes from emotional completeness rather than avoidance, it feels different. It does not create anxiety. It creates intrigue. There is a quiet confidence in someone who can step back without fear of losing connection. That confidence is felt instinctively. It shifts the dynamic from pursuit to presence. Instead of asking for attention, silence allows attention to come naturally, because curiosity grows strongest in the space between what is known and what is felt. Confidence is calm, not loud, and this distinction is often misunderstood in a world that rewards visibility and noise. Many people mistake confidence for dominance, volume, or constant self-expression, believing that to be confident one must always be seen, heard, and validated. But true confidence does not need to announce itself. It is steady, grounded, and emotionally regulated. It comes from a deep sense of self-trust rather than external approval. Calm confidence is not reactive. It does not rush to explain, defend, or impress. It exists quietly, creating a sense of stability that others can feel even when few words are spoken. Loudness often comes from insecurity rather than strength. When someone feels the need to constantly prove their worth, they rely on performance instead of presence. They speak more than necessary, overshare, and attempt to control how they are perceived. This behavior may draw attention, but it rarely builds respect or attraction. Calm confidence, on the other hand, allows space. It listens more than it speaks and responds rather than reacts. This composure communicates emotional maturity. It signals that a person is comfortable with themselves and does not need to dominate the environment to feel significant. Emotionally calm confidence creates safety. The nervous system responds positively to predictability and emotional steadiness. When someone is calm, others feel more at ease around them. There is no pressure to perform, impress, or keep up. This emotional safety deepens connection and trust. Loud behavior can stimulate momentary excitement, but it often comes with unpredictability and emotional volatility. Calm confidence confidence is consistent. It does not spike or crash. That consistency allows others to relax into the interaction, making the connection feel more real and sustainable. Calm confidence also shows itself in boundaries. A confident person does not chase, beg, or overextend. They know when to engage and when to step back. They are not afraid of silence, disagreement, or distance. This self-possession is deeply attractive because it demonstrates independence. It communicates that connection is desired but not required for self-worth. When someone can walk away without emotional chaos, their presence becomes more valuable. Their calmness creates contrast in a world full of emotional noise. In conversation, calm confidence is felt through pacing, tone, and presence. It is in the pause before speaking, the ability to sit with discomfort, and the willingness to let moments unfold naturally. There is no rush to fill every silence or control every outcome. This restraint allows depth to form. People lean in when they sense quiet strength. They listen more closely. They feel more. Calm confidence does not demand attention. It invites it through authenticity and emotional stability. Leave at the emotional peak, because emotions do not strengthen through excess. They strengthen through memory. The most powerful impressions are not created by how long an interaction lasts, but by how it feels at its highest point. When a moment is emotionally charged, the nervous system becomes more alert, more receptive, and more impressionable. Staying beyond that peak often dilutes the intensity, allowing the energy to slowly fade into normalcy. But when you step away at the height of emotional connection, you preserve the feeling in its most vivid form, allowing it to replay in the mind long after the interaction has ended. The human brain remembers experiences through emotional markers. It does not archive entire conversations. It stores moments of feeling. When an interaction ends while the emotional energy is still elevated, the mind does not feel complete. There is a sense of unfinished emotional business. That incompleteness keeps the memory alive. The brain continues to process, revisit, and imagine what could come next. This is why brief but meaningful interactions are often more memorable than long, overextended ones. They leave space for interpretation and emotional reflection rather than exhaustion. Overstaying is one of the most common ways people unknowingly weaken attraction. When someone continues talking after the emotional connection has already peaked, the energy shifts from presence to performance. Words become filler, reactions become less genuine, and the original emotional spark begins to fade. The moment loses its sharpness. What was once engaging becomes familiar, and familiarity without emotional contrast reduces impact. Leaving at the peak protects the quality of the interaction. It shows awareness, self-control, and emotional intelligence. Emotionally regulated individuals instinctively sense when a moment has reached its high point. They are not afraid to step away because they trust the connection rather than clinging to it. This ability to disengage without anxiety communicates confidence and self-sufficiency. It tells the other person that connection is appreciated but not depended upon. That emotional independence shifts the dynamic. Instead of one person holding all the attention continues internally after the interaction ends. When you leave at the emotional peak, you allow the other person to sit with the feeling you created. They replay the moment, analyze their own response, and begin to associate you with emotional elevation rather than emotional drain. The absence becomes meaningful rather than empty. The mind fills the silence with curiosity and longing, strengthening the emotional bond through reflection rather than proximity. This is not about strategy or manipulation, but about understanding how emotional memory works and respecting the natural rhythm of human connection. Don't chase, choose. because chasing places your worth in someone else's hands, while choosing places it firmly in your own. When you chase, your actions are driven by fear of loss, rejection, or being overlooked. That fear quietly communicates neediness, even if your words say otherwise. Choosing, on the other hand, comes from clarity and self-respect. It means you engage because you want to, not because you feel incomplete without the other person's response. This internal shift changes the entire emotional dynamic. Instead of trying to convince someone of your value, you allow your presence to speak for itself. Chasing creates an imbalance. One person is constantly reaching, adjusting, and accommodating, while the other remains passive. Over time, this imbalance weakens attraction because desire thrives on mutual energy, not pursuit alone. When someone senses that you will stay regardless of how little effort they give, the connection loses its tension. Choosing introduces boundaries. It says that access to you is earned through reciprocity. This does not mean withdrawing or playing games. It means responding in alignment with how you are being treated rather than overriding your own needs for the sake of attention. Emotionally, choosing yourself first creates stability. You are no longer scanning for signals, overanalyzing messages, or waiting for validation. Your emotional state becomes independent of external responses. This independence is deeply grounding. People feel it intuitively. When you are not chasing, your interactions become lighter, more authentic, and less burdened by expectation. You are present because you want to be, not because you need reassurance. That presence feels different. It feels confident, relaxed, and emotionally mature. Choosing also reframes rejection. When you chase, rejection feels personal and destabilizing. When you choose, it becomes information rather than a verdict on your worth. You assess whether the connection aligns with your values, emotional needs, and standards. If it doesn't, you step back without resentment or desperation. This ability to walk away without emotional chaos signals strength. It communicates that your self-esteem is internally anchored, not dependent on someone else's interest. Attraction naturally grows when both people feel free rather than pressured. Choosing creates that freedom. It allows curiosity to develop organically. The other person senses that you are not trying to extract attention or approval from them. Instead, you are offering connection without attachment. That balance is rare and compelling. When you choose rather than chase, you become someone who is experienced, not pursued, someone whose presence is valued because it is intentional, grounded, and self-directed. Be complete within yourself because no connection can compensate for an absence of self-connection. When someone looks to another person to fill emotional gaps, soothe insecurity, or provide constant validation, the relationship becomes a substitute rather than a choice. That dependence creates pressure, even if it is never spoken. Emotional completeness is not about isolation or detachment. It is about wholeness. It means your sense of worth, direction, and emotional stability does not rise and fall based on someone else's attention. From this place, connection becomes an addition to your life, not the foundation of it. When you are not complete within yourself, relationships become transactional. You give in order to receive reassurance, affection, or a sense of belonging. This creates an invisible contract that the other person never agreed to, yet feels obligated to fulfill. Over time, this emotional weight becomes exhausting. Completeness removes that burden. It allows you to engage freely, without expectation. You can appreciate presence without fearing absence. This emotional freedom changes how you show up. You become more relaxed, more authentic, and less reactive to shifts in attention or mood. Being complete within yourself also sharpens your awareness. You no longer ignore red flags or compromise core values just to maintain connection. You are able to observe rather than cling. This self-awareness creates healthier boundaries, not as a defense mechanism, but as an expression of self-respect. When you know yourself, you do not abandon yourself for approval. You recognize that loneliness within a relationship is more damaging than being alone, and that peace is not something another person can give you if you have not cultivated it internally. Emotionally complete individuals are comfortable with silence, distance, and uncertainty. They do not rush to fill space with reassurance or control. This calmness allows emotions to flow naturally. Instead of forcing outcomes, they trust the process. Their stability becomes a grounding force in interactions. Others feel safe around them because there is no emotional volatility or hidden agenda. Connection feels lighter, more genuine, and more sustainable when it is not driven by unmet internal needs. Completeness does not mean emotional perfection. It means responsibility. You take ownership of your emotions rather than outsourcing them. You regulate yourself instead of expecting someone else to do it for you. From this place, love becomes an expression of abundance rather than lack. You give because you want to, not because you are afraid of being alone. And when two complete individuals come together, the connection is not about filling emptiness, but about sharing fullness.